Well, should I do that in the announcements?
All right, people, we're going to be live in a second.
Then do it right after.
Okay, we're live.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Hey, what's happening? Want to welcome you to the March 4th meeting of the Millis Select Board. We have with us tonight Craig Schultz, Aaron Underhill, myself, Pete Germain, Mike Kuzinski, who is our town administrator, and Karen Marzo, who is our operations manager. We have a lot of different issues we're going to be discussing this evening. We're going to start off with a number of announcements. The first ones we're going to take are the Easter egg hunt. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that, it is an annual event from the Millis Recreation Department. It'll be held on Saturday, April 9th, and it'll be at 11 a.m. Come one, come all. It's free admission. Look forward to seeing you all there right then. Next item is we have a job vendor fair, which I have to find out exactly. Okay. And I don't see that. Wait a second, job vendor, nomination. No, that's what I was looking for. Okay, it's May 15th at 10 to 2. It's free admission, and where is it actually located?
Here at the VMB.
It's at VMB? Okay, so for anyone who's interested, that's when it is. Sorry about that, trying to find all these things sometimes gets a little difficult.
And Mr. Chair, these are all recreation, those are recreation
Right.
committee events, so if you go to the recreation page, they have them on there,
Excellent.
on the website.
The next one is a library book sale, and that's going to be March 25th through 27th, obviously at the library. It'll be outside, that's sponsored by the Friends. It'll be Friday from 6 to 8, Saturday from 9 to 1, and Sunday from 1 to 3. They'll have the $5 bag sale, and everyone is welcome. They'll have books, games, DVDs, CDs, and all sorts of puzzles for anyone who's interested. Next thing is town election. At this point, every one of the open seats has at least one candidate. So if you have an interest, there aren't too many more days left. I think the 17th or something is the last day you can actually take out nomination papers. So please, if you have any interest, please come in and take out your papers. Let me just see if this is part of it. Yep, recognition awards. We have a few recognitions tonight that we want to take into account. And one of them is for our Millis Recreation Department. And this year, the Massachusetts Recreation Park Association Agency Individual of the Year Award went to our own Chris Fogarty. So it's quite an important award. I think everyone should be very much aware of that. Congratulations, Chris. That's an outstanding job. And the award went largely because of the number of activities she's had over the last year, including Project Smile, which was a very unique opportunity that she put out for everyone in town to take advantage of. I suggest, if you're not familiar with it, take a look at some of the things you'll find on the website. It was a great one. Another one is from the Conservation Commission, and that is our own Camille Stanley, who was awarded the Massachusetts Conservation Commission Administrator of the Year. So again, we have had two people in our town who have done outstanding service, and I strongly urge you to congratulate these individuals if you see them. So that's terrific. We have another announcement for, I'll let Erin handle that, for the veterans.
Okay. There's a National Vietnam War Veterans Day. On March 29th, the 5th anniversary of National Vietnam War Veterans Day, the town of Millis unites to thank and honor Vietnam veterans and their families for their service and sacrifice. These veterans did not receive the just appreciation when they returned home decades ago from an unpopular war. but they do now and forever. Millis thanks you.
Thank you very much. I have another couple of announcements, a few announcements that I'm going to go through that are not listed, but I feel it's important for the town to get some understanding of what's going on. The town, as you may know, is facing a significant expenditure for Pfast, for mitigation. We have in fact been asked, been sending out a number of letters, and we've received a letter from Senator Markey to apply for a grant. So we're doing that. We're going to be talking with the senator and hoping that we can get some money to help in that area. Another area that we've sent out letters was to our Representative Auchincloss. We have a meeting with the representative coming up very shortly. He agrees, in the conversations I've had, that they need to do something, and he's going to try to assist us again to get funds to offset the costs of the PFAS filtration systems. So your select board has been doing a lot to try to reach out to get funding for this significant cost that we're facing. For anyone who's not familiar, the costs are going to be $6 million for the first plant and perhaps between $5.5 and $6 million for one or two others if we have to install mitigation facilities there. We, at this point, just so everybody's aware, we'll be coming up in the next meeting or so. I'm not certain, but I think our next meeting, we will be talking about stormwater revisions. So that's something that we do want to deal with.
Stormwater, yeah.
Stormwater, yes. So anyone who's interested, please plan on attending. You will see it posted. And there'll be, in the very near future, discussions on budget. And again, town has a number of outstanding issues to deal with, and we strongly encourage everyone to attend. We have a number of items on the agenda tonight, and the first one is the on-call library assistant. Now, before I get into that, I am going to say we will also be taking another item, assuming the board agrees, out of order very shortly, right after this. But I do want to allow the on-call library assistant, and we also have one other to take care of, which has to do with our building inspector. So let me start with the building inspector. We have a situation where our plumbing and gas inspector is not able to be here for approximately the next month. I think that's appropriately the way to phrase it. And the town does have to have coverage during that period. And unfortunately, some of the normal coverage is not available. So what we need is for the select board to allow the building department to have somebody in place to cover during that period on a temporary basis. So I'm going to ask our building department inspector, Mike Giampetro, to please come up to either one of these mics, explain what you need.
Good evening. So our plumbing inspector, Tim Costello, went on vacation, and he gave me his 2-week notice that he would be on vacation, which we have two other alternate inspectors who do our plumbing and gas. One is Jim Coakley from Medway, and the other is Jack Rose from Medfield. So we got a hold of Jim Coakley, and Jim was going to cover for Tim while he was on vacation. So last night at 9:30, Jim calls me and says, I have an emergency, I have to go out of state for the week, I can't cover. I said, okay, well, I'll call Jack, no problem. He goes, Jack's on an airplane headed to Vegas. I'm like, all right, so you tell me now. So we need somebody for tomorrow. So started scrambling, and I called Milford, the Milford inspector, Joe Zakili, who I know works, and he doesn't have his own business anymore, he works for the town. And called him up and said, hey, can you do me a favor? You know, can you cover for the week? We don't have anybody, we got, you know, I know we're gonna have a bunch of inspections. He said, well, I can't come Monday, but I can come Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon, Friday afternoon. He says, I'll fit it in, okay. So, and I say for 30 days, just in case something happens, you know, who knows what else is gonna happen, right? So if you can and appoint him, he, you know, he's graciously gonna come and help us out and cover us, for our inspections today. We had like 7 inspections come in for tomorrow. And so we can get somebody out there to do the inspections. And that's why I asked for 30 days, just in case something happens while, you never know. So his name's Joe Zakili. He's a plumbing and gas inspector. He's been an inspector for many years in Milford. He also does part-time in Holliston. When they need, he's their assistant. So, and he's willing to come and give us a hand for the week, so. In order for that to happen, we need the Board of Selectmen to approve him, so, we can pay him. And he can be officially appointed and can do the official duties of plumbing and gas. So, that's the story.
I'll ask the board.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Joe Zakili
Zakili, yes.
as the short-term plumbing and gas inspector for 1 month. Is that what we said? 1 month?
Yeah.
Second.
So moved and seconded to appoint Joe Sakili as temporary plumbing inspector for the town for the next month. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next one was, I gotta find it.
On-call?
Yes, I know. I just gotta move down my packet to find the on-call. Okay, here we go. Next one is an on-call library assistant. And we received 5 applications. Miss Alward is the one that they seem to want to have there. She seemed to have all the proper credentials. So I'm going to ask that, is our library director?
She is not. I had indicated that I would
Okay,
speak to this tonight,
Mr.
Mr.
Kaczynski,
Chairman. So, as you had mentioned, the library is in need of 2 additional on-call library assistants.
Right.
And they did have 5 applications. And the first individual that we're looking to appoint is Alexis Alward. She has an excellent background, which will be helpful in this role for the library. And I am requesting that the board vote to ratify my appointment of her to the position of on-call library assistant.
So that's our first one, so I'm going to ask the board to, if you have any questions or anything.
I'll make a motion to appoint Alexis Alward as on-call library assistant pending any necessary test and paperwork completion.
Right.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to appoint Ms. Alexis Alward as the on-call library, one of the on-call library assistants. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The next individual is Ms. Wickham, and again, Mr. Kaczynski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the other individual that looking to have appointed to the position is Teresina Wickham. She has experience already as a library assistant at the Medfield Public Library for a number of years, and does come highly recommended. She has extensive knowledge of different areas of library services. And tonight I'm requesting that the board vote to ratify my appointment of Ms. Wickham as an on-call library assistant.
I'll ask the board, any
I
questions?
move that we ratify the town administrator's appointment of Teresina Wickham for an on-call library assistant.
Second.
So moved and seconded to appoint, take the recommendation of the town administrator to appoint Teresina Wickham as the on-call library assistant. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we are not going to handle the appointment of a reserve police officer this evening. That's being deferred. Let's see, I guess we have, the next one is Millis Beautiful signage. So I am going to, Ms. Barnes. I was just looking at this, figuring, okay, I can hardly wait on this, so.
Well, you've traveled to some nice places, that's a great screensaver.
computer. Okay, here we go. I just installed software.
Someday we're gonna have Macs. You know, like over in the schools.
You still have to log into it.
Yeah.
That means you have to know what the password is.
Yeah, that's true.
But Bob, I don't want you to feel like you're under any
Slide.
pressure whatsoever.
I just have to remember which computer I'm on, that's all,
From the beginning.
from the beginning.
Because one of them is an
There you
exclamation
go.
point, the other one a pound
Yay.
sign.
Up and down.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
It worked.
Yay. Good evening. I'm Lauren Barnes. I'm here on behalf of the Select Board's appointed Economic Development Committee, and I will be introducing another member of that, of our partnership in a minute. You're going to be hearing from our committee on a couple of different initiatives, but tonight I'm here to ask to present to the board two initiatives for which we are asking your action, and they both are high-impact, low-cost efforts that one will be very familiar and one will be very new. So we're pretty excited about them, but it's not, it wouldn't be a surprise to think that if a town is clean and attractive, it would be something that would be, it would catch your attention in a positive sense from a business and residential settlement standpoint. And so we've been working on these programs, and we're happy to bring them to you directly. It was a shock to me as somebody that has actually worked on a program for Keep America Beautiful, which is the national standard bearer for litter awareness programs, that it's shockingly 70 years of age. But this is the three-legged stool, their template that has worked nationwide, that has provided a lot of communities with some structure for anti-litter planning and awareness programs to keep public spaces clean, to provide waste vehicles for litter, and let me just be specific, litter not to be confused with household or development trash, and also to provide educational messaging so that we all develop a deeper awareness about the impact of litter. And that is, of course, taking center stage with everything that's going on with stormwater and a lot of the EPA regulations of late. The three studies are just three at the bottom of this slide that were studies undertaken by Millis with resident participation, in which we indicated as a community that the aesthetics and the health of our community were really important values, and they were important reasons why we lived here. So the fact that litter would be an important initiative for us shouldn't really come as any surprise, but this is a higher level of organization than we've actually ever had. One of the things that came through in this largest litter study that ever has been published, which was published in May of 2021, which I found interesting, is that when you see litter, it's an invitation to add to it. So therefore, it's really important to change behavior requires us to be attentive and on top of preventing it in the first place. So that's why we're here with two initiatives. The first one will be familiar to you, and the second one will be very new. And so we've indicated in our slides the actions for both. So I'm pretty excited to introduce to you and to perhaps some in the community a very unsung hero who I'm going to invite to come to the podium, Jennifer Donahue. Jen is somebody who really walks the talk very silently. In her day life, she's a very accomplished artist. Depending on where you shop, depending on where you eat, you have probably encountered her chalkboard, oil on chalkboard signs. She paints in oil on canvas. She is commissioned. She exhibits in galleries. But she's also very inspired by nature, and that is in part what inspires her to go out quietly as an unsung, unheralded person, to take quiet walks during which she picks up trash. So we call her our favorite trash talker. She is a trash picker. She is a trash walker. She uses her Instagram to kind of inspire people with very fun and clever hashtags. And she is a member of the Millis Lions Club and represents that arm of Millis Beautification Day in tandem with the Millis Garden Club. So she's here as the co-chair of the 18th annual Millis Beautification Day to tell you and the community what's in store for us this year in the hopes that the Select Board will encourage the town to participate and do it again this year. Jennifer?
Well, thank you so much, Lauren. That was more than I anticipated.
I know, that's why you didn't see that slide.
Anyhow, I'm Jennifer Donahue from the Millis Lions Club, and I'm just reminding everyone about Millis Beautification Day, Saturday, April 30th, 9 to 12. It is a rain or shine event, and you also have to make sure that you have work gloves on and appropriate clothing for the day. And my co-chair, Janet Gashler, or myself will assign sites and make sure everyone is all set and ready for the day. And you'll do that by registering at millisbeautificationday@gmail.com. And we can send you all the information and the details. We can also send you the registration/waiver form that is also available on our Millis Town website and the Millis Lions Club website, and through our Millis Beautification Day Facebook page. So we love everyone to search for that on Facebook, and please like it and share any information in some of my postings would be appreciated. And it's obviously a great way to meet people, and I must say, it is a great feeling of accomplishment to just clean up, beautify your town, and just be with others and meet some of the people that are out there on a daily basis that are doing it. And I just want to really thank them, because people are doing it all year long around our parks and our roadways, and we appreciate and we notice your efforts. I do look around, and I've seen an improvement because of the people that are out there grabbing a bag and taking a walk and just stopping and picking up what they see within, you have to stay safe. So I just want to just say thank you, and see you April 30th, I hope. And thank you, Lauren, for doing this.
And just as a reminder, this is the season when kids, especially in high school, go, oh my gosh, I need a community service project. So this is your call to action. This would be a really good one. So Saturday, April 30th. So our request on behalf of the Lions and the Garden Club is for the board to approve the town's rallying cry to attack litter in this way.
Well, I'll take comments, questions from the board.
It's a great event. I volunteered for it many years. It's worth doing. We picked up a ton of stuff. I think last year was interesting because after we passed the plastic bag ordinance, there were very, very few. It was very different. It was noticeable. The nip bottles, the Dunkin' Donuts cups, those were still there. But the plastic bags were pretty much gone last year we picked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great event. My family and I participate and have for a few years now. We actually did our own street last year, which it tends to be a decent dumping ground, unfortunately. So, yeah, I love the event. I think it's great.
Yeah, I likewise. I participate in it, enjoy it. I actually did my street last year. That's what they asked me to do, and it was a great deal to be picked up, but we got that out of the woods, and it's an excellent event. I encourage everyone to attend. So
I'll
I'd
make a
take a motion.
I move that we approve Millis Beautification Day on Saturday, April 30th, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to approve Millis Beautification Day on Saturday, April 30th, from 9 to 1, was it?
12.
12. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Yay, thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to add that also on behalf of the town, I've reached out to the Norfolk County, I guess it's Norfolk County Prison, actually, where they have inmates that come through a service program to help with different projects in the town. And so I reached out to them. Hopefully they can partner as well. It's great. We still have residents to come out, obviously, on this one day. It's a great community event. But additionally, we should have them for about a week or two. So you'll be seeing them on the sides of the roads, also picking up additional trash. So if there's particular areas that are worse than others and you want to send me an email, let me know. We'll try to put them in the right spots. But that's a free service to us, and it hopefully will help us out as well, so just FYI.
That's terrific,
So-
because they've done great work for us around town in other areas also,
Yeah, we'll
trimming and
take
so
all the free
forth.
help
So
we can
I think it's
get.
great.
So thank you, and thank you, Jen, always for doing this. It's wonderful. And just so you know, Jen's artwork is down in the rec department on the chalkboard if anyone wants to peek at it.
Pond, I did do Project Smile too.
Yes,
So-
yes.
And that was a great program.
That's great.
Proud to help out Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Lynn.
Go ahead.
So this is a new initiative, and Craig was a participant as a member of the Economic Development Committee. This is Keep Millis Beautiful. Every year at this time of year, as we start to go outside, there's conversation on social media that bubbles up about the presence of litter, and there's a lot of blame and discussion, and it gets heated and heated as the season goes on. And we did a lot of research as a committee as to what works and what doesn't. And we think we've come up with something that's fairly novel, and we have validated the fact that our approach is fairly novel. And so we are proposing something that's very different, and that is a very positive message on this 12 by 18-inch green sign. It would be installed by the fabulous Millis DPW, and it's a three-pronged message, very clearly prevalent with the nature message. It's positive, and then with it, we address trash and also pet waste. And the good news is that the cost of the sign, thanks to our resident and tree warden, Brutus Canareggi, who is also the DPW director in the town of Franklin, we can get these signs at basically half cost, at $25 each. And we spoke with our DPW director, wherever he is, Jim McKay, who said that this could be incorporated within the fiscal '22 budget. So every year, the Millis Beautification Day folks meet with the DPW director and discuss where the litter hotspots are, where he gets the most complaints, where it's the most dangerous for people to pull over and try and attack litter. And so these are, in fact, the recommendations of that discussion, where these signs would be placed. And then if there are other groups who manage their own budgets and who in fact would like to take the same approach, they could in fact purchase these signs as well. So we think that this is worth a phase one effort to try a new approach to litter. And I can tell you that the state Director of Economic Development thought this was great, and our police chief thought this was great, and we think it's a really different approach to the typical Mass General laws says you're going to be fined X if you're throwing trash. The point is obviously not one of enforcement, it's one of having you pause, stop, take a moment to survey the surrounds before you are inclined to drop something that shouldn't be dropped there. So our request on behalf of the Economic Development Committee is authorization for the Millis DPW to spend within his department's fiscal '22 budget, $500 for the first phase of these signs. We see how they do, see if they have an impact, and I think it will be very visible. Our committee feels it would be very visible to the town to show that we are listening and that we are trying to be attentive to this issue with a new approach.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. McKay if you would come up and make sure you have the budget and any other resources you need.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have in the sign budget, there is the funds to pay for that. So the town of Franklin, they make these signs. We just don't have the ability to make that here. And Brutus did say that it would cost us $25. The sign posts, we have plenty of them, so there'd be no extra cost for them. And I've already talked to Dave, and he'll get them up once it's approved.
That's great. Do we have any other questions or comments?
I think it's a
I
good
think it's
project.
an excellent idea, by the way. Any comments from the audience? Scott?
Thank you, Scott Fusey, 411 Union. Thank you for the presentation, Lauren. Thank you, Jen, for all your hard work. I think it's a great sign. You know, we are a green community. I think we have beautification every day, and I think it's awareness. It will show people where, you know, not to litter, but take pride in the town. So I think it's a nice thing. It's a nice addition to the town, so thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one question.
Yes, please.
I'm not asking this because it necessarily matters to me. I'm just genuinely curious. Where in these spots would the signs go?
So we came up with these signs, especially, I mean, we'd put two at a couple of different, Richardson's Pond, two, one at each near the barrels, hopefully, or at each end. The public parking lot in back, so we would definitely spread them out.
Okay.
We needed, the big reason why I want to put one in Farm and Acorn Street and Exchange in Middlesex, there are a group of women that go out every day, and they call us up when the trash bags are full, and I just think it's a recognition of,
Yeah.
their hard work that they do. So there are a lot of groups that go out and pick these bags of trash up, put them on the side of the road and call us. So we would definitely make sure that they're visible. Like at the town park, I wouldn't hide them in back of the backstops or something like that. There would be hopefully near the entrances.
Yeah, okay. I will say that I think it's a great idea. I've been walking my dogs around Town Park and was kind of appalled at some of the like it looked like somebody dumped out a big trash bag of dog bags. So I did have a couple bags in my car and a lot of hand sanitizer. And I did pick stuff up. And it looks like somebody recently actually tried to pick up all the masks that were stuck to the fencing around there. But I have to say, there's a bunch of trash barrels around Town Park, which I think is instrumental in getting people to actually throw things away. Because that's the first type, and then there's the people that just throw things out their window. That is a little bit harder because, a trash barrel's not gonna, help that. But I do think this is great. I think any reminder, hopefully it will make a difference before someone throws more nips on the side of the road.
Well, I happen to agree. I'd love to see a couple of these on Causeway.
Yeah.
I realize you have only so many, but when you have more, hopefully in the future, consider it, because I do pick up trash all
All
along
that we
Causeway.
see, all these pots, we're just getting to the end of the Dunkin' Donuts and the McDonald's.
Yeah,
They're done with them and out the window.
exactly what's out there is precisely those. So, given that, I'll take a motion.
Okay, I move that we, thanks. I move that we I'm just gonna read that.
Yeah.
Good, okay. I move that we authorize the Millis DPW director to purchase the initial set of 20 Keep Millis Beautiful signs at $25 per unit, 500 plus applicable taxes from the town of Franklin DPW sign shop, and to oversee their installation throughout town, where they will remind residents and visitors to show personal responsibility for handling their litter at public places.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to keep Millis beautiful, just as was read.
As written, that's how I would.
As written, as read, and as explained, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I think everybody knows that I try and pay attention to volunteers, so I just do want to take this moment to say that Millis Beautification Day would not happen without not only all of us who are going to wear our gloves and bring our rakes and our shovels and go out with our trash bags, but also we do get a lot of support, not only from the DPW, but the Millis Police Department, the Millis Fire Department, the Garden Club and the Lions Club, who organize it, with Janet Gashler and Jen Donahue leading the way. The Millis Economic Development Committee has been doing a ton of work. You're going to hear more from them tonight. So I just wanted to say thank you to them, and thank you for supporting us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to ask the board if they're willing to take one item, only a portion of one item, if you will, and that's 22055, out of order, so that we can
The warrant article.
discuss the warrant. There's a specific warrant
Okay.
or article I would like to
Okay,
discuss very briefly. Is that okay with the board?
Yeah. fine.
yes, fine.
All in favor? Great.
Yes.
Taking it out, there has been, as anyone who's been on social media might be aware, a little bit of discussion over the last few days of an item dealing with the sewer systems in the town and how we're going to deal with the sewer system with our articles. I will tell you that I think there's been some misinformation. That doesn't matter. Given the level of concern, I'm going to recommend that the board consider at our next meeting a detailed discussion of this issue, and that we will set aside time at that meeting to decide whether it remains on the warrant, amended in some way, whether it's not on the warrant. We will at that time discuss setting up additional meetings and so forth. But I did want everyone who might have come with respect to this particular article to understand that it's not going to be on the agenda per se tonight, but there will be an open discussion with anyone in the community who has any concerns to come at our next meeting. I believe it's on the 28th. So,
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I would agree with you on that. I think that, I would hate to see it removed from the warrant personally, but I think that we have to move quickly, so I'd like to resolve it on the 28th, because I think we have to vote the warrant shortly after that.
that is correct.
So I'd like to get it resolved. I'd request two things, that we put it towards the top of the meeting, so that
We
we can
will.
move on from there. And
Yes.
secondly, that we do open it up to a Zoom meeting, not that I intend not to be here, but we do have people that aren't yet comfortable to come in that would like to watch it in real time and maybe comment. But beyond those two items, I think it's a good idea. I think that there's one clause in there that's particularly troublesome to some people, and I think having a discussion around the replacement time, whether it's 15 years or 5 years or 20 years or whatever that
Yeah,
changes to, I think is the key piece.
I've got to keep
Yeah.
it to specifically the
Yeah, but I think
idea
that's
of
what
the
needs to be
meeting,
discussed at that
but
meeting.
I think,
And I think it's got to be resolved at that meeting, too.
I think we will be
Yeah.
resolving
Yeah.
it. We know that there's an issue, but we want the community to have an opportunity to speak and issue their concerns so that we can understand them and we can adjust accordingly as a result of that. If that is okay with the committee, then we will move forward on that at the next one. We cannot vote anything about this tonight
Oh,
because it
right,
wasn't
right.
on the
Right.
agenda to do that. But I did want anyone who was here anticipating that we might be discussing that to understand we will discuss it in detail on the 28th.
And I think one of the important reasons to do that is to get the best bylaw, but not just the best bylaw, it has to be the best bylaw that'll pass.
Well-
So that's why getting community input is so important on this, because it needs to be well thought out and presented in a way that stands a chance to pass. So
I would
think
agree.
that's
The
why we have-
bylaw, if we have a bylaw, has to be one that represents what the community feels and what the community has said. So to that end, we encourage as much participation as possible on the 28th. And as Craig noted, obviously, we're going to make that a top priority on our meeting on the 28th.
And I'll post it as a hybrid meeting, so we'll
Yes,
Zoom
we
the
will.
entire thing.
We
if
will,
can,
in fact,
so.
request that it be a hybrid meeting,
Certainly.
meaning that you can join through electronic media as well as be here in
Come in person.
person. Okay?
Gotcha.
So, okay. Having said that, that's the only portion that I was going to take out of order. And we will now move back into the normal order of what was on the agenda. The next item on the agenda is adoption of complete streets policy. And Mr. Weiss and Ms. Riley, if you would, please.
We have a special guest as well. Let me bring up Bob.
For another chair, Bob? Yeah. You have a presentation for this as well, correct?
Yes.
Or no? Do you want
Yes,
to just
Jeff's
plug, 'cause you
brought
could
it.
just plug it right into,
Right.
you could just unplug that and plug it right into yours. Jeff,
Yeah.
what's your name? Yeah.
Uh,
See
Oh,
if it
that's
works.
the power.
You can try again, there's only one other choice.
There's the connector.
All right, I'm just saying, there's only one other choice.
You know, I'm going to tell you right now, you're pushing your luck pretty hard,
Yeah.
Craig. It's,
Nicole,
that's why I say, I would not want to be on the bad end of this
It
one.
will only fit in one place correctly.
Nicole, I feel your pain. I can commiserate.
All right, so while,
Oh,
well, I was
excellent.
going to say,
There you
while
go.
Jeff is
Perfect.
is getting connected here, I was going to make a quick introduction before we hear from Jeff Maxtutis, who is from Beta Group. I think it's an organization we're all familiar with. He's going to explain to us what Complete Streets is all about. You already have, the policy was sent to the board earlier. There are over, it's a state-funded program. There's over 280 communities in Massachusetts that are already somewhere in the Complete Streets process. And this is a program about health and convenience and safety for people who walk and bike and who wheel their chairs and get around in other ways. It's also about economic development. It's about giving people a variety of access to stores, and stores having their customers coming in with more access. It's about getting kids to school safely by walking. And it's about repairing some of the broken infrastructure that is around this town. And if anybody has tried to go down Exchange Street, tried in a wheelchair, so this program is going to address many things. I'm going to introduce now, and above all, I forgot my major point here, this is about moving people. And the one thing that it's not about is taking space away from cars. So I know that's something that people think of when they hear about Complete Streets. Some people will, but that's not what it's about. But Jeff is going to explain what it's all about. And so once Jeff has told you about Complete Streets, Nicole Riley, who is our Economic Development Chair, is going to speak about adopting the policy. So I will introduce Jeff Maxtusis, who is from Beta, to explain Complete Streets.
I'm just happy they're clean. I have a rule, when they're clean, I don't stop them.
A minor interruption here. This is part of the Clean Buildings Act.
There we go.
Thank you.
We're very excited the building is getting clean, but that's the point, right?
I worked all day with a board meeting at work with them roofing the building, so that was.
Oh,
fun.
that's fun.
It sounds like they're dropping things on me as I'm trying to present the budget.
It's
Yeah.
tough to work, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, that's
Continue.
fine. Thank you,
Continue on.
Bob, members of the board. So Jeff Maxtutis, I'm a transportation planner for the Beta Group, and I have a short presentation about the MassDOT Complete Streets program. And I'll go through this. I have about a half dozen slides, and I'd be happy to answer any questions after that. So just everyone's on the same page. What is a complete street? I think Bob, pretty much summed this up, but it's one that provides safe and accessible options for all travel modes, walking, biking, transit, vehicles. But it does have really this program priority on non-motorized improvements for walking and biking, and people of all ages and abilities, which is important now, as a lot of communities, the population is aging, and make sure those facilities are in place
I wish you
for all
wouldn't look
people.
at me that way.
Well, I could look at myself, too. But, so there is 3 elements to this program, or tiers, as the state calls them, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Let me just briefly go through those. So Tier 1 is where the town adopts a policy of complete streets and does some training, develop a comprehensive policy that guides existing facilities, but also future practices, facilitates better pedestrian and bicycle and transit facilities, again, for all ages and all abilities. The submittal for this Tier 1 is rolling to MassDOT. You can submit the policy at any time. There's no deadline for that. And what MassDOT is looking for is approval by the highest governance of the town or city. In this case, it'd be the select board would have to approve this policy, submit that to MassDOT, and have them approve the policy before you can move on to Tier 2. And a training class is required, and I think both Nicole and Bob recently. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Yeah. And Bob, you recently just took that class, so you've met that requirement already. So the only requirement to pass Tier 2 and allow you to enter to Tier 1, enter to Tier 2 is adopt the policy. Tier 2 is called the prioritization plan, It's where you identify 15 projects or more and prioritize those projects within town. We help you develop those. We do preliminary cost estimates. There's $38,000. It's fully reimbursable from the state to pay for us to help you do that. There are 2 submittals, but you can submit basically any time. They're 6 months apart. The next one's coming up April 1st, and after that is September 1st. Again, they're about 6 months apart. There are always 2 to that, as is in Tier 3, and you could pretty much submit in any time before those. And then Tier 3 is, you have to complete Tier 2, and then that allows you to enter into Tier 3. That allows you to apply for infrastructure funding for those projects, up to $400,000 for about a four-year period. After the 4 or 5 years, then you can apply again. Again, that money is 100% reimbursable for the state, and it is for construction of those projects. The only thing it doesn't cover would be design. The town would have to cover the design portion of those projects. Again, it's about on a 6-month period, or submittal period. Round 1 is May 1st, and round 2 is October 1st. So those are generally the 3 tiers of the program. And just a little more on Tier 2, the prioritization plan. We work with you to identify the projects. I'm sure the town knows of many projects already that can be looked at for this. But we look at those, identify issues, possible solutions, deficiencies. We look at key areas around the town, schools, libraries, parks, shopping areas, senior centers, development projects also. We do site visits. We look at geometrics. We gather traffic volume data, crash and accident data, look at safety issues, look at ADA compliance. There's a lot of data through MassDOT and MAPC that we use. We provide a series of maps. We do concept sketches and cost estimates. The one thing I do want to mention is this program is for non-state roadways. So it's for roadways that are under town jurisdiction only, not state jurisdiction. In the plan, we have a scoring criteria that we use, but we help you develop scores and rank the projects and whatever priority you want of those projects. And we summarize those in a technical report, and there is meetings that we hold with the public. This is actually an example of a plan that we did for Ashburnham not long ago. This is actually what gets submitted to MassDOT. This is the plan. It's essentially a matrix. We do provide a report that provides all the methodology and findings and data also, but this is actually the final report that describes the projects, the locations, the ranking, the cost, and so forth. So that, is minimum of 15 projects. Usually, we're 15, 20, maybe 30 projects at the most, but in that range. So what are the next steps for you to look at? Well, one is to submit and adopt the Complete Streets policy for the town to MassDOT. They have to approve that policy, and once you do that, you can move on to Tier 2. You've already completed the training. I had that on there, but Bob has completed it since, so that's already done. And then after that's done, you're eligible to submit an application to MassDOT for the Tier 2 funding for the prioritization plan. So that's a brief summary of the program I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
Let me start with a question, if I may. Going back to Tier 2, what's your estimate of the cost that your company will have to provide us with the information required for Tier 2 analysis?
$38,000.
You're capping it at $38,000?
The state caps it at that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so these are not costs where the state will reimburse us 38, you're coming in at 150, and we have to make up $100,000, okay? I just want to be absolutely clear
No, that's fine.
about that.
Yeah.
And I assume this will include roads where we need to upgrade facilities such as what we've talked about, sidewalks that are in disrepair at this point and basically need to be redone anyway, and this would be a part of it included in the project. Okay, I don't want to monopolize, so I'm going to open it to the board members, Erin or
I have one question,
Go ahead.
sort of, I guess. For tier 3, it says it's up to 400,000 reimbursable. What, is it just that there's up to 400,000, or or would projects need to be, or once they approve it as a whole, would we just have up to $400,000?
So you're going to submit the projects to them. So out of that prioritization list, you're going to pick the projects. You can have a project that's over 400, but you'd have to pick up
But
the
they'll-
rest.
Okay,
Or
all right.
you can have a project that's in the works and say, we want to pick up a piece of it for 400. You can take 5 projects out of that may total 200 smaller projects. So anything up to 400 that's on the list. You can't change the list for 5 years. So once you make that list, they're locked in. But 400,000 can't fund all the projects on
Right,
that
right,
list
right.
anyways.
Yeah, okay.
Understood.
Just want to make sure there wasn't specific criteria, because it was saying up to, I just wasn't sure if there was any other contingencies within that.
As long as it's a valid project, and we'll help you with that, but, generally, anything that's promoting bicycle, pedestrian, transit, it can be traffic, but mostly on safety, not capacity. So you can't just pave a roadway under this program, because it doesn't provide those type of benefits. But sidewalk reconstruction, new sidewalk, handicap ramps, traffic calming devices, school zones, anything like that is eligible.
Okay, thanks.
2 things. One, this is my Economic Development Committee summary.
Yes,
so I'm
I
not gonna
understand.
do
It's
one,
a-
Okay?
This was
So
going to
this is
come
like my
later on.
third time through it. So, secondly, yeah, I think that I was impressed when I heard that it could go towards sidewalks. So we know that sidewalks are a major need here. We can probably come up with, I don't know if we want to do 10 different projects for sidewalks, or say sidewalks is a project, and that's for the consultant to work with us on. But I think all of that makes this very attractive to me. I mean, I heard about it at the Economic Development Committee, and it seemed to make sense. Once I got the full presentation, it made a lot of sense. And there was concern that it was going to be, cutting down on roadway and traffic way, but it's not going to do that. We can tailor it to fit our community's needs. So,
Yeah, that's what, to me, sounded very attractive, is we can take what we've got for an infrastructure, enhance it, or renovate a portion of it. But that is very attractive. I also would look forward, particularly around the schools and so on, to enhancing what's there. So this looks
yeah.
great. I'm going to, if you don't have any more questions, I want to open it to the audience in case any of them have any questions or comments. Scott?
Thank you, Scott Fusey, 411 Union Street. It's a great presentation, Bob, Nicole. At the last select board meeting, it was brought up about sidewalk extensions and stuff, so this would certainly help with that. Fix a lot of sidewalks in a lot of areas in town, put more handicap ramps in, so, and maybe even more pedestrian cross lights. It would help with some of those costs that we always seem to need. So it's a great project, and I think it will improve a lot of sidewalks that need to be improved. So thank you.
Thank you, Scott. No, there's no question it dovetails with what we've discussed previously. As Mr. Schultz has indicated, he's brought it up on several occasions, as has Ms. Underhill. So these are issues that we know we want to address. Did you have some
Yeah, I
comments?
just had something quick, Mr. Chair, I was going to ask. I went to a presentation on Complete Streets many years ago, when this was first starting, and they talked a lot about doing town branding as part of that. Is that still involved? Like they have the flags, I don't know, Sherburne, you guys probably know, or even Medway, where they have the flags where kind of like Millis has a brand, which helps to attract economic development and people here. Is that still part of this, or not at all part of this?
Not, well, let me just say, if it's part of say we had like a gateway into town, that may be part of it
Maybe
there.
some sort of a thing.
Yeah, the branding isn't as much part of it as some other programs recently the state
Okay,
has
just
had.
out of
like,
curiosity.
Yeah, the local rapid recovery program was big into
Yeah.
branding.
Yeah.
This one, not so much, but, we can always see if there's that opportunity.
Okay, I just thought it was interesting. Bob and I have talked about that before in the past, too, so.
And Mr.
Well,
Chairman,
give-
I was excited about it because it's not, a lot of times these grants come up, or not these grants, but grants come up and we're looking for, do we really want to do this? This fits everything we already want to do. So it's not, here's $400,000. If you do this thing, it's not even on your radar screen.
Right.
Sidewalks have been on our radar screen forever.
Right.
And so this is a great example of a way to do something we all know we need to do with funds that are coming from the state.
Well, I mean, even our last meeting, we were discussing sidewalks, so on, so I think it makes a great deal of sense. What do you need from us this evening, specifically?
Mr. Chair, Nicole Riley, Chair of the Economic Development Committee, and I'm also the Planning Board Liaison to the Economic Development Committee. Before I answer your question, I did want to just point out one other item with regards to this. This also is going to allow the Planning Board to apply it to developers. As you go through this, you will see this is not a bylaw, it is a policy. So, and this was something that I kept harping at Bob, sadly, as we were first going through it, saying, okay, well, if the planning board's going to apply this to developers, where's the list? What do, where's the step? And you're not going to see that in this policy. This is very open. As Mr. Schultz said, it is so that the town can tailor it, but it's also going to allow planning boards to tailor it to different developments, depending upon the size, depending upon the location. If a development is coming in somewhere on Village Street, and there's, for example, I live on Blueberry, and then a new development went in across the street. They're both young developments, young families. The planning board in that situation could have encouraged the developer to put a slow or, a blinking sign in a crosswalk so that children could cross safely on Village Street. So this is something that the planning board will be able to ask developers to work into their projects. But before you do have the policy that the Economic Development Committee has put in place with the assistance of Mass DOT guidelines and with Jeff's office. This is what your board will need to approve. What you also have is in front of you is a letter of intent that we would, if you would be so inclined, we would ask that you approve this evening. This we would be able to send off to Mass DOT now, which simply states that it is Millis's intention to pass and accept a policy within the next year, so that it's just to get the ball rolling. And it does acknowledge that there would be at least one public meeting to open up the policy to public comment. Whether normally that's something that's sent to the planning board, but because this isn't a bylaw, that could be handled here at the select board meeting. But it's really just to get us into Mass DOT and get the ball rolling from them, so that would then give the members time to go through the policy and, request any changes or address any other questions that you won't have since you haven't reviewed it yet.
I have read the letter, I assume the others have also, but I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know if this has actually gone before a town council. And I don't normally ask for something like this to be approved before at least town council has reviewed it. You are a lawyer. What's your view of what is in here? What is it committing us to that's irrevocable?
I have been told I'm not supposed to make statements like that because I don't represent the town.
That's correct.
So-
That was a test.
But I'd like to, but you understand where I'm coming from.
Absolutely,
I would very much
absolutely.
like to have us deal with this, but I am loath to do so without town council having gone through it. Now, I don't know what my committee members here feel, but personally, I like it, don't get me wrong.
I think that we could have town council review it, put it on the next meeting without any real presentation and just vote it. We don't need to have the full show again. I think it's something that I intend to vote yes on. I just want to make sure it passes legal muster.
The other option I would propose is we approve it with the condition that it has to be reviewed by
Just
town
approved
council.
as to form by council,
Yeah.
but he does not see any
Okay.
liabilities to the town.
Right.
In approving this. You could take that action, so Either action you can take.
I would say, I'd like to take that action if
That's
that's
fine.
okay. I think like all of you, I feel we ought to move forward on this. And assuming town council has no problem, it continues. So why don't we vote it under those conditions, if that's okay? I'll take a motion to that. That it needs to be reviewed by town council, and assuming no problems, then our vote will so carry.
Okay, so I move that we adopt the complete streets policy as long as legal reviews and sees no issues.
Yeah, it's reviewed
Second.
by town policy,
Perform and function,
council, and
whatever, right.
no problems.
All of that, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's been moved and seconded to accept this as discussed. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry,
Opposed?
making notes.
None. Motion carries unanimously. So, yes, I would hope that by the next meeting, we will have, or even before then, town council will have said no problem, in which case we will sign it and you'll be off and running.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you, yes.
I do have one small,
Go ahead, as long as it's small.
it's small, I promise. So the complete streets policy, Town of Millis, where the form has all the signature lines for the select board.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's serving as the letter and the policy?
I don't see,
That first page is what you would sign and would be
Okay.
submitted to
Right.
Mass DOT. The pages 2 through 5 are the
Okay.
actual policy.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. I think I'm good. Well, as long
okay.
as we change to 2021, then I'm.
right, we'll change, I was just gonna, you beat me to it, but we will change the date,
We've been going over this for
I'm
several
sure.
months.
yes. And we'll get it resolved as quickly as possible, and we'll come in and sign it,
Sure.
okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Appreciate it. Okay, next item on the agenda. Mr. Weiss, I guess you can stay up here, Community One Stop for Growth.
Another computer.
Well, are you sure you know which one you want this time?
I know which computer. It's a question of which password.
Bob, you're clear you can store multiple things on one computer, right? You know, it's not like you need to have one computer for each document.
Hey,
That wouldn't be
Craig,
a challenge.
you know, Craig, I mean, you're pushing pretty hard on stuff like this.
It's a thing called a cloud. I don't know what it is.
Yes, but I can say, Craig, I don't know what it is.
It's somebody else's computer.
Well, while he's setting up, if you don't mind, I'm gonna take a very quick break. I apologize, but I need to.
Sorry, did I give you enough room? Okay, all right.
Getting computer number 4 out, it looks like. All right. I meant to plug this into work today, but I forgot. I haven't pulled it out since this meeting.
Oh, do you need a cord?
No, I'm charging
I
now.
was gonna say it might.
I
if
organized
this would
cords
work,
and
but
everything
yeah.
else before I came in tonight. As soon as I got here.
Bob, that's 3 for 3.
I'm missing somebody here, aren't I?
Overall meeting time.
You are.
That's kind of awesome. No, I
didn't know where it was.
Pictures on your slides.
No pictures.
I just said,
No pictures. This is, you have to,
I don't think it's going
Loring, I told him, yeah.
Really?
honestly.
to, you know, we're not.
Tell you what, economic development is cranking.
You keep
I
us-
don't have
you
to
keep us
summarize
score tonight?
anything at all.
Boom, boom, boom.
Can we do this?
It's not a
Yeah,
public
it's not a
hearing.
hearing.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Where are we now?
22053.
You gotta give
Oh,
it,
it's actually, it's at 7:45.
yeah, so we're
Oh,
running
never
behind.
mind. Okay, thank you, sorry.
I get excited for a
I'll be
brief minute
brief.
there, Erin.
I'm like, ooh, we're ahead.
I'm like, we're ahead. No, we're not. No, we're not.
Wrong line.
Bob, that's a
Well-
beautiful slide.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Use your imagination for pictures. Thank you.
Okay, it's all yours. Bill.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, Bob Weiss,
Excuse the
economic.
harassment, but that goes with the territory. right?
Yes.
He knows better.
Been here before. Well, thank you very much. And as we probably are all aware by now, the Boston metropolitan area is going to be growing. And it needs to become more affordable for all kinds of working families. We don't have a proposal tonight. This is simply an update. But to do our part in what is going to be the Massachusetts economy for the long term is actually going to work to this town's advantage. To help us do that, the state has combined several of its traditional programs and grants and added a few new ones and created a way for us to access them through something called the Community One Stop for Growth. Now, at the same time, over the last 22 years, I have gotten off the shelf a number of studies that were done for this town. And they all have at least one thing in common. They have said to develop the town's center. I've also spoken to many people since I became the Economic Development Director and Planning Director, and a lot of people have asked about that. So basically, what we can do here is take our long-term town center plan and economic goals and apply the one-stop, and it's as we go along on a continuum. Now, we began our one-stop application process with an expression of interest. I mentioned this several months ago. And in that, we mentioned 5 projects that we were interested in. Actually, they're more goals and aspirations which proceed from the earliest stages of a long-term economic development, from planning and developing our capacity to creating regulatory support, and then construction assistance for specific projects and infrastructure assistance. So the first part of that continuum, this is what the state one-stop Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development is the office that is in charge of the one-stop, and that's why they're the ones who use the term continuum. So the first part of that is a land use plan. Now, we got a good start on a land use plan with last year when we had the Urban Land Institute help us with that plan. The first question, of course, now is who's going to be involved in that? And we have tenants, and we have homeowners, we have landlords, we have property owners, we have staff and board and committee members who are all going to be involved in that. We were working with some later with the ULI study, and now we're going to work closer with many people and probably be able to bring in a lot more people to help us make our decisions. One thing we need to do is to define the town center. What's it going to look like? Is it going to be residential? Is it going to be commercial? Is it going to be industrial? Is it going to be a mixed use? If we have more residential there, will it be, will it be single family, multifamily? So these are some of the questions that we're going to be answering. But of course, part of that is going to be because we have, as a MBTA community, we are one of the 175 communities that are going to be part of the multifamily zoning requirement the state has for us. That's the Chapter 40A, Section 3A that I mentioned to this board several weeks ago. So once we have developed our land use plan, the next thing that we're going to do is a zoning analysis and a zoning plan. It's not an easy thing to do, because we know zoning changes are going to require a supermajority at the town meeting. We're part of the way there now. We know we have a multifamily district, but it is, right now, it's under special permit. And one of the things that the MBTA multifamily housing is going to require of us is we give up some of that control. We'll still retain site control, or not site control, but site review. But we're going to have to give up that special permit, and it'll become by right. One of the things about this is that I've mentioned this to a couple of folks, a couple of committees already, and one of the things that I've been reminded is that we need to be more developer-friendly in Millis. And so this is actually going to work to the advantage of that, because this will be a little bit helpful for developers in town. And we can get back to that in a little bit. Now, if we're going to have more activity in the center of town, one of the things we're going to need is a transit node. So one of the things that we're going to ask the One Stop for is some help finding a transit node. We're going to need a place. Now, if in addition to that, we also had a transportation survey that we did in the fall. And according to that, we had over 300 people respond to that. 90% of the folks who responded said they wanted to see more transportation, public transportation in Millis, and that they were willing to pay for it. So the state, on the One Stop, has programs for both acquisition and for design help. We have in town a beautiful, iconic building in the Lansing Millis Memorial, a building which we know needs help. We had a feasibility study done a couple of years ago, and came up with a $1.5 million price tag to that. So one of the things that the Community One Stop has is something called the Building Underutilization Fund. That is through the Massachusetts Downtown Initiative. Again, it's part of the One Stop. And we will be applying for that. One of the great things about that program is that it will help us find other grants as well. Now, finally, the fifth idea that we came up with was infrastructure funding. If we're going to have more people living in the town center, if we're going to have more businesses, if we're going to have more activities, we have to start thinking, we already have, of course, but we have to be concerned about our wastewater and our stormwater capacity. One of the programs that is in the Community One Stop is the Massworks Program, which we've used in the past. It makes it a lot easier going through the One Stop to access that. And the Massworks Program helps build infrastructure, not just, it doesn't have to be just wastewater and stormwater. It can also be sidewalks, streets, street lighting. And what it does is it will help with state money, combine some of the town's money and some of the private developers' money to build the infrastructure that we will need. So those are the 5 goals that we hope we can get realized through the Community One Stop. We've already we are already working on the first, the land use ask for the One Stop. And we submit our application in May, and that's the update.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. I'm going to open it to the board if you have any comments or questions. No, not at this time. I'll open it to the audience if anyone in the audience has any questions or comments. Yes.
Clarification, if I might, Mr. Chair, Kathy McInnes, 78 Island Road. What properties are you talking about? Is this private property or town-owned property, or?
It would be, well, one of the things we need to do is define where is the town center? So, you know, is it between, it would be all properties. I mean, this is a plan. So is it going to be between Union and Auburn? Are we going to, right now, last spring, we extended the MCEOD, the multi-use, out to between Hammond Lane and, Pleasant Street? So once we define where it is, it will involve all properties, private, public, whatever is there, yeah.
Thank you.
But I remind you that, Mr. Chairman, that this is, it's a plan. It's not, you know, it's not a mandate that this piece of property does this or this piece of property does that. But it gives us an opportunity, gives the town an opportunity to say, you know, if we can, we have 5 different zoning districts in what is considered our town center right now. Just between Union and Exchange and Auburn, we have 5 different districts. So it's very confusing if you're a developer. And so we hope that we can, with the zoning analysis part, make it a little bit simpler for development to happen.
What are you looking for from us tonight?
Just to give you an update.
Okay.
Not going to ask for a
And
proposal at all.
as we move forward, if you come in with other things, are there funds available to assist us with this? Are there estimated costs associated with it? What additional work is to be done to give us a better idea of the scope of the projects you're talking about?
If you look at the land use plan, the first project that we'll do, if well, the ULI study, for instance, was about $50,000, I think. No, that was $35,000, all paid for by mass development. A more intensive plan is going to be more than that. We will look for a grant of similar or even larger size. And state grants very often will ask for about 5 to 15% of the total cost.
Okay.
We might be able to find 100% cost in some of it. Something like Massworks is going to be, you know, depends on the total cost, but that's infrastructure. But they help with a lot of it. Then the developer comes in with a considerable amount, and usually in something like that, well, Jim's not here, our DPW director, but I think he was involved the last time we did Massworks. So this would be the major part of it would be paid for with the state grant.
Well, it's interesting. I think it's a little nebulous from my perspective, at least at this point. There's a lot more that has to be done, and we'll look forward to hearing from you in the future as you get clarity with respect to what specifics you're looking for, what you're expecting from the town, what you're going to get from the state, where this is leading us, so we have a better understanding of what we're about to commit to if we decide to commit to it at all.
Well, the first
You don't have to answer that right now.
but the first grant we'll apply for will be probably next month, and at that point I'll have to come back here to the board, because we will tell the board exactly what it's going to cost, how much is going to be expected from us, and how much we'll raise from the state. That would be for the land use plan.
That's fine, but at that point, we also need to understand exactly what the goals are for what you're going after.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Please, wait a second. Lauren?
Lauren Barnes, member of the Economic Development Committee. I just wanted to say to you, and also really to the town, Mr. Kaczynski and Karen will remember this, that it wasn't too long ago, we didn't even have an economic development function, and the state didn't even really, when I say the state, the Economic Development Office of the state really didn't even have Millis on its map. So a lot of what we're doing is, in order to play ball with the state, you have to kind of be responsive and interact with the programs as they kind of push them in our direction. And so to the extent that some of these things do feel a little esoteric, you're not really sure why we're doing them, but these are the proof points for the state that we're serious of intent. So then when we want something really important that we can really wrap our arms around, the state sees that we've done all this work to this point and we've checked boxes. And so they're going to be more inclined to view us with favor when it comes time for something significant in terms of a grant or an opportunity, or keeping us on a short list for an introduction to a business or something like that.
No, I appreciate the explanation, that helps. But I think what we're looking at is, these are next steps. This is where we begin to make it clear what our interest is and what we're prepared to commit to. And that's all I'm trying to make sure that we get clarity on that. But I think the process and the direction you're moving is appropriate. So I commend you on that, and keep us informed and let us know what we need to do in the future.
Will do.
Okay? Thank you very much. Okay, if I can figure out which pair of glasses to wear. Go ahead, laugh. Someday you'll have the problem too.
I'm just thinking that I only have one pair of mine and I'm struggling today.
Okay. The next item up for some discussion is the Stormwater Credit Manual. And for that, we have with us this evening our town council, Mr. Jay Tellerman. We've been looking at some of the changes that we have suggested, and I think we've all reviewed a great deal of what's going on in that manual. What I would like to hear from Jay and any of the committee members are any concerns, thoughts, questions, whatever, for trying to accomplish what we're after. I did notice that there was a large write-up, which I left the one thing at home that I wanted, and I apologize. But there was a large write-up that Jay gave us that gave us the documented view of all of our comments incorporated into the document. So what I'm going to do is open it to Jay, and quite honestly, to both of the members on the committee to go over it and ask questions. And I'm going to dig up my copy, which I hope is here.
So, and I'm calling it up too. The document that I worked from a Word version of the existing credit manual, and then just started to build in suggestions based upon some notes originally by Pete, and then subsequently by Pete as well as Aaron, and some discussion with Mike as well on, to address some of your goals, or to help facilitate some of your goals for changes to the manual. Some of the more recent ones that I made changes of towards, I think, the end of last week, included a kind of a edit of Pete's drafting for the kind of the introduction, the explanation part. But basically what we were trying to accomplish was to take a refined look at some of the credits, the caps that were on there, the types of properties that would get credits, also to simplify some of the language as to how folks may understand their access to credits, and then to start working towards, and this would be more unfinished business, what might be some of the process to kind of demystify the ability for homeowners in particular to get access to credits from the stormwater. You know, left unsaid in all of this, and this has been a question, is if you all are successful in bringing more people to the table who are doing good things on their property to facilitate credits, then that is going to result in increases in costs to others and to everyone in particular. So the dollars and cents analysis is something that's still in front of us. Jim, I think, is working on that, or looking at it, or keeping an eye on it as these changes happen. So I wouldn't call anything we've done really an end product yet, but I do think that it's starting to get to a point where we can discuss hard and fast changes around the notion of a broader range of credits available to homeowners.
If I can add a couple of comments, Jay, at this point, now that I found what I was looking for. What we're trying to do is set up a process that encourages better use of the stormwater drainage off of an individual property, so property owners make better use of that, and at the same time, give them credit for having invested in whatever they did to do that. What Jay was pointing out is that we have a specific amount of money that we have to commit to every year just to meet our stormwater obligations. So regardless of how credits come out, ultimately, the cost to manage stormwater throughout the town is whatever that nut is, and we have to pay for it from all the residences. So it just means you distribute the cost to others. It may be a very small amount, but it's still a distributed cost. The other thing we were looking at was with respect to encouraging people to take action on their individual properties, was to help them understand that if they do that, they individually can perhaps reduce their costs. On the other hand, those reduced costs go back into the total. So it's, you pay Peter to recover from Paul kind of thing. But the reality is it distributes the cost perhaps more equitably across the entire community in the long run. We are also trying to make it easier to understand what it means to have stormwater recovery, drainage, and improved quality, so that the town can meet the standards being set by DEP and EPA throughout, as a result of the requirements that they have established. It's not so much that we don't want to meet them, but we need to know what they are, and as a community, we need to understand what that means to our community and why these costs are in place. So all of these things are trying to be taken into account in the changes we're making to the manual. At this stage, we have some changes. We are reviewing them, and we're going to have to set up probably some meetings in the very near future to allow community members to participate in this so that they can better understand what it is we're trying to accomplish. It is complicated, it is difficult, yes, it's costly, and no, we have no options. We have to meet these obligations, whether we like it or not. So I'm going to open if any of you have comments. I think what we're going to end up having to do is to set up a meeting in the not-too-distant future and go over this in some detail so that we can incorporate everyone's comments. I think, Aaron, you and I have added some. Craig, I don't know, and I'm not.
I wasn't involved in the original creation, and I didn't have a lot of comments on it because I'm still learning it.
I'm going to say something in Craig's defense. This is not an easy process to
You
understand.
don't have to defend me, Peter, I got this.
No,
I'm good.
No, but the point is, it's difficult, and it's a process that we all have to go through. So I didn't mean that in a pejorative manner, Craig, and I hope you understand that. I meant it that for everyone, this is a difficult process to deal with.
Yeah, and I get it. I've read complicated things in my life, I've understood complicated things. I wasn't at the inception of this one, I don't know the problems that have
Right.
occurred in the past. So I didn't feel it would be adding to the conversation to speak just to speak on it. I can do that if you want.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yes,
just ask
please.
a quick question? Jay, from the most recent document you sent us, just for a little clarification, I see some black writing with some lines through it. I see some red and some blue, and I don't know what I'm looking at.
That's my question.
So I think that, and let me just state also that, thank you for not wearing the same shirt that these two guys are wearing.
Similar.
That's awesome.
Blues,
Yeah,
Close with him as well.
Yeah.
Didn't even notice.
No, appreciated. I believe, and I don't know, because colors change from version to version, my
Yeah.
version has my changes in blue and Pete's in red.
Yeah,
Okay,
Right.
okay. Yours is blue, his is red.
right.
And if you, I don't, if you're running Word, if you hover the cursor over a change,
Right.
it likely tells you who made the change.
Oh,
Yes.
look at that. Okay, okay.
There we go. That's what I had to get to.
Okay, so this, the red and the blue, is this a rewrite, or is this an edit of the
So the-
original document?
And the other confusing thing is, it doesn't change color. It changes color by user, but not in the process. You could,
Oh, so it doesn't differentiate what was
right,
there?
so the first round of changes were some simple ones based around the notion of how do we, and there were some other things too, but how do we clean up a little bit of the language, but also how do we maybe increase the cap on credit? So it was much more rudimentary. You had a couple of comments. I only really addressed kind of 1.5 of them. The other one, I think, is something we still have to work on the
Yeah.
commercial side. And then Peter had a number of edits on kind of the overall message, and to maybe kind of steer this more towards the residential user credit rather than calling it a small user credit.
Okay,
So there were some kind of changes along that. So the one I sent last week is definitely more comprehensive than the
Yeah.
original one you got.
okay, and then I'm sorry to
Go
belabor
right
this, just one last question. So now I understand who each color may be, but there's lines through some of it. Is that indicating that we don't want that language, or?
I believe almost all the lines through were Pete's,
Yes.
and I think he did that so you could probably see them in line versus as a deletion in the margin. I'm not going to try and get in his head on his
Okay.
editing style, but it makes sense, like, so where he crosses out, for example, with 2 to 4 billing units, that seemed to be an indication going forward that we're trying not to confine the residential, and that goes
So that would be
along with,
removed?
along with one of the recommendations you
yes.
made, that, look, if you're a single-family residence, we don't want to define you as between 2 and 4.
Right.
We're going to say you're a single-family residence, or perhaps, and there's still an unanswered question, are we going to extend it to duplexes?
Right.
Perhaps, or whatever, but we're taking that away, those parameters.
Okay.
Any residential user that, depending on how you define it, is going to be eligible for getting the credit. So if someone
Okay.
happens to have a larger 5 or 6,
Yes, they'd still be seen as
they'd still be
Yeah.
seen. We're looking at more of a category there that we're trying to help
Okay.
out.
All right, so having all of that. I
Yes.
did, I did read this, but now that I have a little bit more differentiation, I need to go through it again. And like you said, we'll make another meeting.
Yes, we will have
So-
a meeting that I think is specific to this,
Yep,
so that we can go through it in detail with our edits, with Jay's comments,
yep,
and put it into a whole. And it is trying to address, as I've read through your comments, my comments, and so on, all the things we discussed at our meeting where we discussed specifically the stormwater,
Yep.
to get away from worrying about the 1, 2, 3, 4 credits and the size of the family and the size
Right.
of this, and get it into the single-family dwellings, there are multiple and so on, there are commercial properties, but differentiate more along those lines than the way we were originally set up. Obviously, we're going to do the best we can in that regard, but at that time, we also need to have people like the DPW director and so on involved, so that we get their view of what has to be done.
Yep.
And then it has to go out and have the community be able to comment.
okay. Thank you both for that.
Jay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I do think that once you get kind of your goals, then I think we're gonna have to take a look at the back end of the process, which is the more process-oriented stuff. You may recall when we first started talking about this, I had real concerns and as being kind of a process person who's gonna look at this when you get requests. How are you going to qualify or quantify some of these requests for credits? I think Pete's goal is to make it user-friendly for folks, and I think that that's terrific. My concern about that is that someone may do something that looks like it's super beneficial, or might on the surface seem to be beneficial from a stormwater mitigation perspective, but actually does nothing.
Right.
So we don't want to put people in a situation where they have to spend $3,000 on a civil engineer to justify
Exactly.
a few
Yeah.
$100s in credit. But in the same token, we have to have some ability to make sure that these things are going to work the way they're intended.
That's a really, yeah, we definitely have to talk about that part.
We have to, we also, as you noticed in here, my comments had to do with allowing the building inspector or somebody to get involved. But all that has to be worked out, because there are costs involved no matter how you do it.
Sure, yeah.
And so all of these issues have got to be addressed. But the ultimate goal is to make it easier for people to understand and to take advantage of the fact that they want to improve their stormwater runoff.
Okay.
Okay?
And just to add, for those in the audience, this is not in the packet, this went directly to the board. At this point, I guess, now it's part of the minutes, so if anybody wants to see all the red and blue lines, it is kind of confusing and very hard to read, I would agree with that, unless you had the original, and then you
Right.
put this one next to it and highlighted it, which is
Right.
what I would have to do. But certainly, I can email this if anybody is interested in having it. So, okay, so I can put that, actually, I'll put it up on the
I was
website,
gonna
so
say,
that if you're
put it on the
interested in seeing the
website, and then
markups,
you can pull it
like I said,
down.
it wasn't done to purposely take it out, it was just that I wasn't quite sure what we were gonna be actually talking about at this point, so, there you have it.
Very good.
Do the
Okay.
markups move when you PDF it? I mean, do they
Well, that's-
PDF? And I don't think they do. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Not if you put it in a PDF, we
Right.
can leave all of the markups.
Oh, you're gonna leave it in Word?
Yeah,
Okay.
or, yeah,
Yeah,
so
okay.
that you can actually see everything that's on.
You might be able to, I think, change it, you could either lock it, or you could change it to, I think, an RTF.
Okay,
doc-
I'll have to
A
try that.
document that, where it can, stay, so it's uneditable, but still, people
They
can
can see
actually
the
figure
edits.
out what the edits are
Right,
and what
or
they
I'll send
are.
it as a PDF or something so that they show up,
Right.
because it does get very funky when you try to share
Right.
it with other people, which is,
Yep.
again, why it's.
Yeah, and over time, what we'll
Not
do
shared
is
initially.
not have them available so they can see the edits, but they can also see what looks like in what we think is the final.
It's going to happen,
Form.
right?
Yeah, it
So,
is, it is very much a work in progress. so.
Exactly, which is why it's
Very
here, so. we want people
complicated to
think
deal
we were-
with.
Anything was going on, so, all right, I will put that on the site.
Okay, well, Jay, thank you very much. I think
You're
that
welcome.
pretty much covers what we were going to cover this evening for the stormwater.
Excellent.
At this, oh, excuse me. Please go ahead, come on up and introduce yourself.
Robert Yeager, I'm here as commander of the Millis American Legion Post 208. I was not aware of this credit terminology. I just wanted to make the board aware. I sent the board a letter and pictures, as well as to Jim McKay, explaining our position. We should not be assessed for stormwater, whatever you call it. The reason is, first of all, our property slopes down. You go to the front of the building, all the property slopes down, even the driveway. But more importantly, in front of our building is a curb and a storm drain, and it goes under the sidewalk, under the front part of the ground, and comes out on a culvert, which then the groundwater flows over the ground into one, and then the second sumps, and it stays there. So not only is our stormwater not a burden to the town, we, in fact, handle that portion of Curve Street stormwater. So we don't think it's fair, and we've paid this assessment 3 times, and it's an assessment that's a burden to us, and I'm sure you hear the same thing from other charitable institutions. However, we are a tightly financed operation. We only get $7 dues from each member, and we get donations, let's put it that way. So it's that, and this upcoming sewer stuff is going to probably be the death knell for the post if there's not some exceptions made, so.
Bob, thank you very much. I will tell you, it has been your issue has been forwarded, not just to the town administrator, he's talking with the DPW director, they're going over it. It is being reviewed, and you will be contacted, as will myself and other board members, as this gets resolved. Hopefully, it's resolved appropriately, just so we're clear. I also am a member of the Post, so I have to be very clear about that. But we are not, at this stage, in a position to comment on it. I can tell you that it's being reviewed at this time. And you should feel free to contact the town administrator and/or our DPW director at any time, but give them a chance to put together whatever it is that's going to be recommended.
Thank you. I did send a letter and pictures to DPW director. He was not aware of our situation. He didn't know, well, you probably know that. He didn't know that we had these storm drains and that curbside, whatever you call it, actually didn't go anywhere else, just to our property. And there's an easement that allows that to happen. The town has an easement on our property to do that, so.
We'll keep you informed, and you should feel free to contact at any time, and hopefully this will get resolved fairly soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have any, changes to ground, or those, or no?
You want to discuss the,
Well, I didn't know if you want to just have them.
what do you think they're here for?
Well, it's the item 058, discuss.
Open meeting?
You had put that on there.
Oh, right.
If you don't know if you wanted Jay to stick around
Oh,
for that discussion.
yeah. Oh, I see what you're
Jump to
saying.
that if you want.
I'm sorry, of course, yes, open meeting law. Yeah, let's just jump to that if you're willing, and then Jay can leave, so. I apologize, everyone, I hadn't thought about that. I'm going to ask again if you have a problem if we move 22-058 forward so that our town council can leave and get to some other business he has to go to.
Sure.
Is that okay?
No problem with that.
Okay. Then we're going to discuss the open meeting law requirements that we've exchanged any number of emails on. And if you have any comments as we discuss them, please feel free. There have been comments back and forth. You've received some comments, both of you, that came out of discussions that have taken place between the Attorney General's office and here. I'm just going to tell you right now, from my perspective, it's as clear as mud. They have contradicted themselves, and I
Again
think,
today.
again today.
We got another opinion today, because we
Okay.
called, there were two different attorney generals that gave us two different opinions. One closer to my original opinion, and one a little bit more liberalized. And we called them on it today, because they came, one went to you and one went to my partner Lisa, who spoke to the director originally. And the director has tried to meld the two together, but it's just a mess because of that original underlying decision they made about attending other boards' meetings. So I think we're at the point now where it's a little bit better than our original opinion because they give a little bit more of a roadmap. But I want to be a little bit more cautious than we were when we started this. Or than the middle step when,
I
it
think-
started when I expressed significant concern, and then we were able to back off because the Attorney General loosened up a little bit on it. And then we got the opinion issued to you, which seemed to revert about 2/3 of the way back towards the concern. And we spoke again to the director today, and they've kind of highlighted the fact that there's still a reason for concern, but that so long as people kind of stay in their lanes, you should be able to still participate if that's what you want to do. So I've had discussions with you on it. I've had some discussions with Craig on it. Like you said, it's clear as mud. So as town council, have to take the conservative view and say to express some caution when you do choose, if you choose to attend those meetings. But because who knows when they'll change their mind again.
Yeah, and that's my concern. So I think we each know that there's a concern there. And all I can suggest to all of us is be careful how you state something, or what you state, or what questions you ask. And otherwise, we'll just have to move forward and use the best we can.
I'm fine with that, yeah, I'm on board with that.
I mean, this applies to all of us, so.
No, I get it. I think the solution is to post the meetings if we're concerned, but until we get called on it, we can continue without posting until there's an issue.
And the other thing, not that I'm inviting anyone to step perhaps over the line, but given the lack of clarity in their own decisions, I don't see how they could ever significantly penalize anyone, given the fact that in the span of a week, they've changed their mind about 4 times.
Quick question, if you are a test case, do they name it after you?
I was just-
Immortal. Nicole would know that.
I just don't particularly want to be the test case.
It's a
but,
Schultz decision.
Mr. Chair?
Some others may choose,
Can I
yeah.
ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Do you have all these in writing, all the different
We have the one
decisions?
that from this afternoon after I left the office and went to my other meeting, which I was just coming from. My partner Lisa, who has had this exact same issue in another town, but even maybe a little bit more odd because it was definitively a select board subcommittee.
Oh.
So it was even a little bit more concerning. So we do have something new from them, but it essentially mostly endorses the opinion that Pete was able to obtain from the Attorney General, which is just a little bit to the left of my original very cautionary one, but,
Okay,
but, yeah.
okay.
But look, you're blessed to have a really sensible board, so I'm not overly worried about this board. I represent a bunch of select boards that I would be very concerned about. So
Okay.
this is not that
We'll
board.
behave.
Yes.
As much as we can,
Yeah.
at any rate.
Right.
Jay, thank you very much. I
You're
know
welcome.
this is kind of crazy, but we're just trying to make sure we understand what's going
No,
on.
I mean, we are, we were concerned about the original Attorney General opinion on attending other boards, and we knew that this was going to be pulling a thread.
Yeah.
And it has proven to be that, and I hope they rethink that a little bit.
Hopefully they will.
Yep.
Thank you very much, and thank you
you.
for your time tonight.
Of course.
Okay. The next item on the agenda, then, we'll move back to 55, which is the ATM, town meeting warrant articles. So I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Kaczynski, our town administrator, and let's go through what we've got tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to kind of run through the articles as they're in here, and if there's any questions or you want to discuss any of these, please just stop me as we go. Many of these are standard articles that we find that we deal with every spring, at every spring town meeting. So right now, on our draft warrant, we have 27 articles. I'll start with Article 1, which is unpaid bills. So this is basically prior year bills. Still working with the finance director and the town accountant to pull together those bills. Article 2 is the FY22 additional wages and expenses. That article is generally on there so we can make transfers to balance any imbalances in the different departmental budgets that may have occurred over the prior 10 months. So the finance director and I will be pulling that information together over the next couple of weeks. Article 3 is the actual FY23 operating budget. So I think everyone knows what that is. That's the big article for our town meeting. Article 4 is a ratification with funding for, right now I've listed 3 of our units. That's the SEIU, the firefighters, local 4704, and the ASME Council 93, local 1301. We are really just getting going with those negotiations. And it's likely we won't have those completed in time to have any specific funding and line items, but we usually set aside a sum to make sure that we have funds set aside to for the contract terms once they are settled. Articles 5, 6, and 7 are the sewer, water, and stormwater enterprise funds. Article 8 is the annual consent agenda, which are any amendments to the personnel plan, The Board of Health Appointing Authority item that we need to have in there every year. Approval of the revolving funds, and approval of the Community Preservation Fund. Articles 9
Wait,
and...
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
On
Yes.
the revolving funds, Article 8,
Yes.
I'd like to consider the, not at this point, but as we get into this, the recreation fund,
Yes.
and roll that into the budget. I'd like to leave possibly $5,000 or $10,000 as a token revolving fund amount for those one-off
Small items?
expenses
Okay.
that occur.
Yep.
But I'd like to look at moving that 200,000 down to 5,000 or 10,000, whichever is the appropriate number.
Okay.
Putting the rest in as revenue and then funding the entire rec department out of the budget.
That makes total sense.
Okay.
I've actually had some discussions with our finance director in regards to that. So you'll see that in your next version of this draft. Articles 9 and 10 are related, and that they both relate to the Community Preservation Fund. One is a consideration for soundproofing for the pickleball and tennis courts. The other is for a town-owned properties inventory and management plan. If you recall, that would be related to Mr. Stedman, who came and presented a possible project to the board. Right now, Mr. Weiss and I are finalizing an RFP to find out what the cost would be for such a project. And I believe that the Community Preservation Committee is meeting within the next couple of weeks to further that discussion. Article 11 is the FY23 recertification process. That has to be done every couple of years.
I'm sorry, one Article 9 question too. As we
Yes.
get into the discussion of that, can we make sure, depending on what solution is proposed, because I know there's multiple solutions for that. If it is the screening, I'd like the police chief to be present to talk about safety concerns on that.
Absolutely. And I know he's been consulted in
Yeah.
some of those discussions. So for, and then after the item for the recertification, we've got Article 12, which are the capital items. Our capital planning committee is still working to wrap up that work. They're pretty close to the finish. They're meeting tomorrow night. And I think they'll be pretty much done after tomorrow night, so I should be able to fill in most of the details of that later this week into the draft document.
Excuse me, when they present that, I'd like to see not just what they're recommending, but the entire list and the way they've set up whatever priorities they've got on
Absolutely.
that
I
list.
know that, in speaking with the chair of that committee, he has asked to come meet with the board in, I think, one of your early meetings in April.
Yes.
To present the recommendations of the capital committee, so.
Well, since we have to vote this warrant and close the warrant by April 11th, I believe, I would really like it to be presented on the 28th, so we then have one meeting to digest it. 28th would be ideal, April 4th would be the latest. So by early
think
meeting,
it's
it's gotta
April
be April 4th.
I think it is April
Yeah.
4th, but
Yeah.
I'll be speaking with the capital committee tomorrow night, so I will talk to them about those dates.
Yeah, April 11th won't cut it, April 4th would
No,
be
we
fine. Yeah,
understand.
and that's the meeting I would like to go to, but I have board meetings that night, so that's my problem.
All right. Yep, I'll speak to the committee tomorrow night in regards to that. The next article is for the Pfast water treatment bonding amendment. We've discussed that as a result of the bids that have come in, we do need to get an additional $500,000 in bonding authorization to make sure we have adequate funds in our contingencies for that project. The hope is we won't need much of those funds, but they need to be there in case things come up during the project. Article 14 is a new computer lease for the schools. And again, whether this is funded within the operating budget or here, we still need, if it's a lease, we still need town meeting authorization for a lease, which is considered a borrowing under state law. Article 15, now we begin with the items related to the article from the last town meeting having to do with charter amendments. Article 15 is consideration of a general bylaw to establish and outline the powers and duties of the town administrator. Article 16 is a charter amendment to change the select board composition from 3 members to 5 members. Article 17 is to make an amendment to the select board's powers of appointment. Article 18 is a charter amendment to change the town clerk from elected to appointed. Article 19 is a charter amendment to change the name of the finance committee. I have informed the finance committee of the board's desire to get, a formal response from them. I believe that will come up at their meeting this week, so I'll be able to report back to the board on that.
One question on these, and to be clarified later, 17, 18, 19, all mention to be ratified at annual town meeting.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
they
annual
don't-
election.
They don't need to be approved by the legislature.
Right,
Those
in
ones,
Article
yes.
3, Article 16 rather, Section 3 of the executive branch does not mention that anywhere in there. Would there be a?
Well, it would need to be approved through special legislation, and then it would be determined by the special legislation whether or not it's required to go back before the voters. The board, it's really, I'm really following the advice of town council as to what the requirements are. So the board can discuss that process if you want to look at other process.
I just want to make sure we're not hitting the minimum requirement, but I'd like to make it as inclusive as possible on it.
That's an option the board could, put in there. That's up to the board to determine.
Yeah.
Article 20 is the sewer bylaw, which you discussed briefly earlier this evening. Articles 21 and 22 have to do with zoning bylaw amendments. The first one is amendment to associate planning board member. The second one is to add IP2 district to tables 2 and 3. I'm sure I'll be getting the final language on that shortly. Then the next 3 are fairly standard in our warrants. One is to fund unemployment insurance, that account. The other is the OPEB fund. The next one, 25, is the Stabilization Fund. And then we have 2 petition articles that have been submitted having to do with the creation and outline of a elected water and sewer commission. So that is the current draft before you. Again, I do plan on, some additional refinement needs to be made, obviously, and I will get a copy of this out to council later this week for a first review. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board has at this point. I know you only received this a few hours ago.
On the first petitioned article,
Yes.
would that be an amendment to the charter?
It would be.
And that would have to be ratified by townwide vote as well, or special action by the legislature?
Correct.
Okay. I guess that's a question. Would it be, it could be either, but we
One
don't,
of
we
the two.
haven't specified which option we're going
Correct.
in this one as we did on the others.
Correct.
Okay.
And some of it's at the discretion of the select board, so.
Well, I think it just needs to be made clear that it wasn't part of the
Right.
Charter Review Committee process,
correct.
because they were in place for that purpose, to review
I
the
think
charter.
there are a number of qualifications we need to put in
Putting that
place on
aside,
this.
I just want to make sure that we explain the
Right.
full process. when
But
it's-
we-
Yes.
yeah.
Yep,
But we have to describe the full process as
Mm-hmm.
well as what it means and the implications.
sure.
Right,
And
I would-
what the role of the select board will be in how we implement that process, which turns out to be rather interesting.
Yeah,
And the second one is just a bylaw, so, okay.
Yep,
And the bylaw wouldn't have any impact unless the charter change took place.
Correct.
that's correct.
contingent upon the
One's
first one.
dependent on the other.
Yep.
Yep. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you. Okay, so that's basically the listing of what we've got. We'll begin going through the articles and discussing them in detail, probably starting at our next session.
Yep.
We don't have a lot of time, and my concern is, it dovetails into what Craig was saying earlier, that if we begin to run out of time, we may have to have our special session, because we have a number of things that could consume a fair amount of time
Yeah.
as we go forward. So please think about
Yeah.
if we have to have another meeting,
Mm-hmm.
when it's possible to
Between
do so.
April 4th and April 11th.
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly,
Yeah,
because
28th.
Well, now
We-
we have 3 things to be separately meeting
absolutely,
on.
yeah. If we
So-
have to defer something, we have to defer it, but let's see what we have to do. I think we can do it, but I'm suspicious that we're gonna have to have a separate meeting.
And we've been invited to this, the finance committee on the March 23rd or something, did I see?
Yes.
that?
Yes.
This time, we
Week
have
from
been
Wednesday.
invited, correct.
Okay.
In
So,
relation
and
to
that
these
will be
articles,
posted.
Yeah.
some of these articles in here, they wanted to get
Right.
feedback from the board.
Okay.
Mr.
Okay.
Chair, if I just might add, Kathy McGinnis, when is the warrant going to be posted, seeing as you discussed it at a public meeting tonight?
Well, we're not gonna post it until we've had a chance to discuss it, and we haven't done that. We'll probably start the discussion at our next meeting, as I was just saying. As soon as we get the warrant to the point where we feel it makes any sense, we'll begin posting it. It's not it's, at this stage, not ready to be posted.
I specifically left this meeting to ask town council, and his opinion was that it's a public document, so it should be
Well-
publicly available,
If I
so.
may, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
please, go
Thank you.
ahead.
Yes, it is a draft document,
draft.
and we do usually post make them available as drafts after the meeting. So we can certainly work to get you a draft, but again, I would remind anyone who gets a draft that that's all it is at this point.
Right.
So,
I look at this, when somebody says they want to post it, they're looking for clarification on an item that's pretty well defined at that point. So if you accept the fact that it's a draft, then we're well away.
says it's draft all through it, right?
Not yet, it doesn't. I'm
Well,
looking- Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, it says
It's
so
blended.
on
It
all
does
the
have a
pages.
watermark. Yeah.
It has a
It's-
watermark.
We know it's a draft.
Yeah.
We
No,
just don't,
yeah.
we just don't want any misinterpretation at this point, because articles can be removed at this point, and very much changed. So that's exactly what it is. It's well away from anywhere near completion at this
Yeah,
point.
and if I may, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just so, I mean, this document, this draft that you have, the board did not receive till about 6 o'clock this evening, so, but we will attach this to the materials from this meeting online, so if someone wants to go in there and get it, they may. We're not gonna post it as the warrant on
Yeah.
the town website, because we are concerned that people will misconstrue that,
All right.
so.
Just put it as a draft in our meeting.
Just-
In the meeting
Way to do it,
materials,
Just the
yes.
meeting material.
Thanks.
Okay, are there any other comments from the audience? Okay. The next item is the town administrator's evaluation. So I'm going to start that, give me just a second. Warrant articles, and did I have that? I have it here. I just want to dig up my copy of it so that I can make some comments as we proceed here. So, okay. Where do I have that? Agenda. Here we go. Okay. Obviously, this is something that's going to be posted, but what I want to go through is that each of the members of the select board has in fact had a review with the town administrator. And what we have here is a summary of the collective reviews of all the individuals. And it's broken into several sections. I'm going to make a couple of comments up front in that I'm not going to go through all these sections. But what I am going to say is, at least from my perspective, in terms of the review I gave the town administrator and what I'm looking at for the collective reviews here, is we have an individual who has earned a lot of respect from the rest of us in the town with whom he works. He's done a lot of work with the employees and with the boards to try to participate, to try to guide, and as we've even seen tonight, his understanding of what we need to do, how we need to proceed is very, very good. He's also taken the initiative to deal with a lot of different issues. I mean, it doesn't take much imagination to understand that the last couple of years have been relatively tough for everyone. Dealing with COVID, dealing with the employee situations associated with COVID, dealing with the funding and so forth. He's participated in all of it and worked well throughout the town. He's also working well as a result of some of the major issues that we're confronting. I can tell you he's assisted this board in writing numerous letters to our state legislators and to our congressional body, trying to seek funds. And as I indicated earlier, some of that looks like it may come to fruition. To what extent, we don't know, but he continues to try to push hard in those areas because it's so important to us. He's helped us understand what makes sense in terms of issues that need to be addressed, prioritizing them, and working with some problems that we've had within the town. So I want to state basically that from my perspective, I'm quite pleased with the efforts of our town administrator to maintain our town in a very positive attitude, to work with the employees of this town, and to work with anyone who enters his office and has a concern, and trying to explain what the issues are to our community in general. So from that perspective, those are my comments, but mine alone. So thank you very much. I'm going to open it to the other two members of the board.
I will say, I can echo pretty much what Pete said. I'm very, I think you're an excellent town administrator, and you've been very supportive to the board, very helpful and educational in terms of using your past experiences to lend some more information for consideration for the different things that we're working on. I do also like to publicly say that you kind of work miracles, considering how short-staffed your office is, and with the different demands that are on all of you. So, thank you very much. It's a ton of effort, and we really appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not as eloquent as the other two. I'm German. I did performance appraisals this week at work, and I had a woman cry when I gave her a 3. It was a standard. That's good. But anyway, so Mike has met or exceeded my expectations on all of the areas that we evaluated him on. Told him that we did the review. He does a lot with a little, and we're lucky to have him in the town. So that comes into glowing in my recommendation world. Okay.
Great, thank you very much.
And Mr. Chair, although I have
Yes.
no evaluation abilities since he is my boss, I will say that he is a pleasure to work with, and he always does what he thinks is best for this town, which I think is really important, even if you don't agree with what he's saying all the time. And he's a real asset, I think, to this town.
Well, thank you. I think that's
And
good.
that's not for
And I'm sure that brings your appraisal right up there.
I'm
too.
sure,
But, yeah.
truly, but I
No,
truly say that on
understand.
behalf of the
I'm
town, as
teasing
someone who
you.
works
I'm
with him
gonna
day in and
tell-
day out. His
Just
attitude
in
is
case
fantastic.
anyone has a question, Karen has done yeoman's work the last few years also to keep the town
Thank you,
running.
that was
So,
not for that.
yeah, But
That's-
they work very well together, and it quite honestly makes a big difference in how the board functions and how the town runs. So thank you both very much.
Great, thank you. And I just to say a couple words. I do just want to thank the board for your kind words and support. Certainly, the fact that you all work well together and support me, help me greatly in what I'm trying to do in my office. So I want to thank you for that and the support you've given me. I guess I also want to thank Karen for all the, like you said, yeoman's work she has done. The office has been a pretty busy place the last couple of years, kind of spread thin at times. So want to thank her and Maureen and the other folks in the office, and also all the department heads and all the employees of the town. Way I look at it is, any good review here is really as a result of the great team we have across the town and all the work they do. I do a lot of work organizing, encouraging, helping people out there, but they're the ones that actually do the physical work where the rubber meets the road. So I just want to thank all the department heads and all the staff out there that do great work every day, so. That's it. Thank you very much.
You've built a well-oiled machine, and I think it's appropriate you are commended accordingly. So, thank you.
Thank you.
These, again, will be posted very shortly. Okay, I've got to find out where I'm at. One last thing here. We've already discussed, board liaison. Oh, yeah. I would like to ask board members if they have any comments on committees they've attended. I know that Craig has some, but let me start with you, Erin, please.
Sure. I've been attending the capital planning committee meetings, which is really the most recent thing I've attended, I suppose. They've been going through all of the requests and ranking them according to a worksheet. We've been discussing how they're ranked. We've talked to department heads who can, better explain what the requests are and why, so that we can help determine the priority. That's now getting finalized and will be presented to the select board and the finance committee, it sounds like beginning of April.
Craig,
Yeah, EDC we did. I mean, everything you
Yes.
voted on is what we discussed. The PBC meeting, we did have a meeting with the COA and another one where we got back our options for the senior center building is proposed. And the cost range was 12 to 18 million on it's really 2.5 options. One renovation of this building and then one version on the Cassidy land with an addition, which makes it really like 1.5 buildings out there possibly. So there's 3 plans we'll be reviewing. We're gonna set up community feedback meetings, much like we did with the elementary school, where the consultant that designed these, they have professional staff in their office that run these type of things. They're introduced by us, but then we sit back and let them conduct the feedback forum that they run. And then based on that, the final design for a building will be proposed, and then based on that, the select board will review them. Typically, I think we got 3 finalists, 3 final designs back for the school. I bet we get a few final designs, iterations of whatever the most popular version is here, and then we vote as a select board whether we accept that or we tell them to go back to the drawing board. But COA has a lot of work ahead of them. We discussed having probably 4 meetings with the community, a couple during the day for the seniors that can't get out at night, and then others at night, because really if the 21% of the town who are seniors are the only ones that are aware of or voting on this, it doesn't stand that good of a chance. But if you can get the word out to the majority of the community, then we can see where it goes. And there's a lot of options to consider, whether it's a true community center, whether it's the Council on Aging only building, what is it going to be? And that's what's going to be teased out at the feedback meetings that we're having.
Great, thank you, Craig. Those
I was gonna say,
focus
just to-
groups are very important to
Yeah, I was gonna say, just to add on, Mr. Chair, and to Craig as well, that we had a conversation, Mike and I had a conversation with the chair of the PBC as well. And so we're gonna do everything we can too to just blast that information out to make sure that we reach as many people as humanly possible to get to these meetings.
That's great.
So we'll work on that with them too.
Excellent, thank you. I just have one. I attended the school committee meeting. I think the easiest thing to say is that the town and the schools are facing some tight budget issues this year. And I'm not going to go into the details of it, because over the next several weeks, you're going to get a lot of detail on what's going on. But it's a tight year all the way around, and it's something that the community has to look at. Nothing's been finalized at this point. In many respects, both the schools and the town have managed their budgets very, very tightly. But unfortunately, there are issues beyond their control that we're going to have to deal with. And so it puts significant budget constraints on us at this time. And I'm going to leave it at that until further discussion. Is there anything that anybody in the audience has to add to any? Okay. Then I think we're at the point of the sewer water commitment.
Yes,
And,
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
yes, please.
So in your packet is the water and sewer commitment for the month of February 2022. We ask that the board approve the commitment to the treasurer in the amount of $1,611.88.
I'll make
I'll
a
take
motion
the
to
motion.
approve the commitment as written for $1,611.88 for February.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to permit the water sewer department commitment for February 2022 in the amount of $1,611.88. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you.
And I believe, other than that, we have the minutes. Have you all had a chance to review the minutes or not?
I've reviewed them.
Yes.
And I'll take a motion on the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes for Monday, February 28th.
As written?
As
As
written, I was
written.
waiting for that line, I'm sorry.
As written. I'm like,
Second.
It's been moved and seconded
That's the
to
trigger,
accept the
make me say
minutes of
second.
February 28th as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. For all of you who are interested, this ends the open meeting for this evening. We are now going to adjourn to executive session, and as soon as I find the specifics, the executive session this evening will deal with union and non-union personnel issues, specifically Mass Coalition of Police, Local 171, Millis Police Association dispatchers, SEIU 88, and the police chief. So I'm now going to poll the board to go into executive session. Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Jermaine, yes. Thank you all very
Thank
very
you.
much. If any of you have any questions or anything now that we're adjourned.